I didn't say anything for a long time. Claire sat across from me, small and shaken, clutching the edge of the table as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. The morning light made everything look harsher. The lines on her face, the worry in her eyes, the quiet desperation radiating off her. But I wasn't rushing to fill the silence like I used to. I let it stretch, let her sit with everything she had never allowed herself to feel. Finally, I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the street. People were walking their dogs. Someone was mowing their lawn. A neighbor waved from across the road, unaware that inside our house, the last threads of an 8-year marriage were unraveling. Claire rose slowly, her voice trembling. "Ethan, please talk to me." "I am talking," I said quietly. "For the first time in a long time, I'm actually talking." She stepped closer. "Then just tell me what you want. Tell me how to fix this." I turned to face her. "You can't fix something you never learned to value." Her face twisted. "That's not fair." "It's honest," I said. "And honesty is something we haven't had much of between us." She blinked back tears. "I love you." "Do you?" I asked. "Or do you just love not being alone?" She opened her mouth, but the words didn't come. It was the same pause I'd heard last night when I asked her what she appreciated about me. The same emptiness. She was terrified, not of losing me, but of losing the structure of our life, the convenience, the identity of being a wife. The truth settled over us like dust. I walked past her, heading toward the stairs, and she followed, her voice rising in panic. "Ethan, please. I'll go to therapy. I'll change. I'll get a job. I'll do whatever you want." "I don't want promises," I said. "Promises are cheap. You've given me plenty." "Then what?" she cried. "What do you want from me?" I paused at the top of the stairs. "Respect." She pressed a hand to her chest, as if the word physically hit her. "I can learn. I can give you that. You should have given it to me years ago." I went into the bedroom and pulled out the same suitcases I had packed before for business trips. Only this time, they weren't for me. Claire followed me in, shaking her head, her voice cracking. "No, no, please, don't do this. Don't throw everything away for what?" I cut in. "For a neighbor? For a joke? For my ego? No. I'm doing this because I finally see what our marriage has become, and what it hasn't been for a long time." "You don't mean that," she whispered. "I do, and I think deep down you know it." She watched in horror as I began placing her things neatly into the suitcase. Shirts, sweaters, the robe she loved. She grabbed at my hands, but I gently moved her aside. "Ethan, stop. Please. I don't have anywhere to go. You'll figure it out. I don't have money. You'll figure that out too." She sank to the floor, burying her face in her hands. "You're being cruel. This isn't you." I zipped the suitcase and set it beside her. "Maybe this is me. The me you never bothered to see." Downstairs, I heard a soft knock. Claire's head snapped up. "Don't," she whispered fiercely. "Do not answer that." But I already knew who it was. I walked downstairs, opened the door, and there stood Jenna, holding a small container. "I realized I borrowed creamer and forgot to bring something back," she said lightly. Then she saw my expression and her smile softened. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said, and for the first time, it felt true. Claire appeared behind me, eyes red, voice sharp. "Leave. Now." Jenna didn't even flinch. "I'm not here to start anything." "You already did," Claire snapped. "All of this is because of you." "No," I said firmly. "This is because of us. Our marriage didn't break today. It broke slowly, quietly, and I'm just finally acknowledging it." Claire's face crumbled again. "Please, Ethan, don't say that. Don't say it's over." I turned to her. "It is." She shook her head violently. "I can't accept that. You don't have a choice." Her breath hitched. "You're choosing her." "I'm choosing a life where I'm not mocked by the person who's supposed to love me." Claire reached out, grabbing my arm with trembling fingers. "Please, don't do this. I can be better. I swear. You should have been better when it mattered." Jenna stayed silent, respectful, watching both of us carefully. I gently freed my arm from Claire's grip. You can come get the rest of your things tomorrow, I said. I'll be here. And then what? She whispered. Then we move on. Her voice cracked like glass. I'll regret this forever. Regret, I said quietly, is finally catching up to you. I closed the door softly, not slamming it, not angry, just done. When I turned around, Jenna was still standing exactly where I'd left her, her expression warm but not intrusive. You sure you're okay? She asked softly. Yeah, I said. I think I'm finally okay. Later that evening, we sat on my back porch, eating takeout and watching the sky shift colors. It wasn't a date. It wasn't romance. It was two people sharing space without tension, without fear, without someone waiting for a chance to make the other the punchline. For the first time in years, the silence felt restful instead of heavy. Jenna looked over at me. You know, she said, it takes a lot of strength to walk away from something familiar, even when it's bad for you. I nodded. Took me long enough. Better late than never. We sat quietly again. Then she added, for what it's worth, I think you deserve someone who sees you. Really sees you. I looked at her, really looked, and felt something warm move through me. A feeling I hadn't let myself believe in for a long time. Respect. Kindness. Possibility. Not answers. Not promises. Just a beginning. The next day, Claire came for the rest of her things. She didn't yell. She didn't plead. She just moved quietly, eyes swollen, face drawn. Before she left, she paused at the door. I know I can't fix what I did, she said. But I'm sorry. Really sorry. I nodded. I hope you find what you're looking for. She nodded, then walked to her car, her figure shrinking with every step. And I felt nothing but relief. Not joy. Not triumph. Relief. Freedom. A clean slate. That night, I sat on the porch again. Jenna joined me with 2 glasses of iced tea. No drama. No tension. No performance. Just peace. Real peace. And I realized that sometimes, the ending you dread becomes the beginning you needed. If you've made it this far, do me a favor, subscribe, hit that like button, and leave a comment telling me what you would have done in my place. Your support means everything. She thought she could humiliate me in front of everyone and walk away smiling. But when I answered her joke, the entire room froze, and her grin shattered like glass. And before I continue, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. That it all started at our friend's anniversary dinner. One of those suburban gatherings where everyone pretends their lives are perfect. The chandeliers were dim, the wine was flowing, and the air was thick with that polite laughter people use to hide how bored they are. I was sitting at the long dining table, passing a bowl of garlic potatoes to Mark, our next-door neighbor, when I first noticed the shift in my wife, Claire. She was on her second glass of Pinot, cheeks flushed, voice a little louder than usual. Claire always loved being the center of attention, especially when she felt the audience was easy to impress. The house belonged to our friends, Henry and Melissa. Big place, glossy hardwood floors, the smell of roasted chicken drifting from the kitchen. Soft jazz was playing somewhere in the background. I remember thinking, maybe tonight will be peaceful for once. I should have known better. By dessert, Claire was holding court at the far end of the table, throwing out stories, exaggerating moments from our marriage to get a laugh out of the group. I didn't mind at first. She'd been doing this for years, little jabs at me she thought were charming. I'd spent a long time letting them roll off my back like raindrops. But that night, something felt different. Maybe it was the way she kept looking at me after every punchline, waiting for me to play along. Maybe it was the way the others' smiles were a little too polite, like they weren't sure whether to laugh or look away. That I remember taking a sip of my water, watching her from across the table as she leaned forward, elbows on the polished wood. You know, she said, pitching her voice louder so everyone heard. Sometimes I swear I should trade Ethan in for a model with better upgrades. People chuckled, light, awkward. I forced a smile. I'd heard worse. But Claire wasn't done. She lifted her glass like she was making a toast. Seriously, anyone want a husband who's low maintenance and barely motivated? The laughter came louder this time. A few widened eyes. Someone dropped a fork. I saw Mark shift uncomfortably in his chair. Even Melissa shot Claire a look that wasn't quite friendly. For a moment, the room blurred. Not from anger, no, from clarity. Cold, razor-sharp clarity. Years of dismissive comments, condescending smiles, jokes that always cut deeper than she realized, all stacking on top of each other until they formed something heavy enough to crush the last bit of patience I'd been carrying. But instead of snapping, instead of defending myself, I simply sat back in my chair and let an almost unnatural quiet settle over me. A quiet so absolute it sliced through the laughter still echoing across the table. Then Mark, recently separated, calm, thoughtful Mark, set down his wine glass and said with a half smile, "If you're offering him up, Claire, I'll take him." The table went dead still. Even the music seemed to stop. Claire's smile faltered, collapsed, vanished. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I just looked at her, letting the silence grow heavier, letting it press down on the room until no one dared breathe too loudly. And for the first time in a long time, she couldn't hide behind laughter. Her eyes flicked to me, searching, panicked. She had no idea what was coming next. The moment Mark's words hit the air, Claire's face shifted so quickly it was almost painful to watch. Smug amusement melting into confusion, then twisting into something tight and nervous. The entire table sat frozen, forks hovering, wine glasses half raised, eyes darting between her and me like they had suddenly been dragged into a live performance they never bought tickets for. And I just sat there, perfectly still, letting the silence stretch until even the candles seemed to flicker quieter. Claire cleared her throat, attempted a shaky laugh, and said, "Okay, very funny, Mark. You all can stop pretending now." But nobody was pretending, and that realization crept into her posture like a chill. I could see it. The way her fingers tightened around her wine glass. The way her gaze bounced off every pair of eyes that refused to rescue her. She whispered my name, but I didn't move, didn't try to ease the blow. Not this time. I let my chair slide back slowly, the sound scraping across the floor like a warning. I stood up, adjusted my sleeves, and finally met her eyes with a calm so cold she physically flinched. "Well," I said, voice even, steady, louder than I expected, "congratulations, Claire. Looks like your offer got a buyer." The room reacted as if someone had punched the air out of it. A few gasps, a muffled, "Oh my God," and Melissa looked ready to yank Claire out of her chair herself. Claire set her glass down with a trembling hand. "Ethan, stop it." I was obviously joking. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Because you've been taking these little shots for years. Tonight was just the first time someone threw the ball back at you." Her eyes widened. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." I leaned forward slightly. "Then explain it. The humor. The part where everyone laughs at your husband while you sit there soaking in the attention. Go on. Tell us all the punchline." She opened her mouth, but only a strangled sound came out. That was when Henry cleared his throat, clearly desperate to defuse the tension. "Hey, guys, maybe we should." But I didn't even look at him. Claire reached for my arm, but I stepped back before she could touch me. That tiny motion alone hit her harder than anything I could have said. Her voice cracked. "Can we please talk privately?" "Privately," I repeated with an eyebrow raised. "You didn't mind having an audience 5 minutes ago." Her lips parted, then closed again. People were looking at her with pity, others with discomfort, a few with resentment. She felt every stare like it was burning through her. And then, unexpectedly, Mark spoke again. "For what it's worth," he said softly but clearly, "I wasn't joking." The room erupted internally, not with noise, but with shock, pure, unfiltered shock. Claire practically gasped. "You stay out of this," she snapped, voice shrill, breaking. Mark shrugged. "You offered him up, Claire. I didn't force you." Tears sprang to her eyes, but she blinked them away fast, trying to cling to dignity she no longer had control over. I watched her unravel, slowly, helplessly, desperately, as she realized the spotlight she loved so much had turned against her. She looked at me like I was supposed to save her, like I had always saved her, like it was my job to lift her out of the embarrassment she'd walked straight into. But this time, I stepped past her, reached for my coat, and said, "You made me the joke tonight. Now you get to sit in the punchline." I could feel her panic rising behind me, could hear the tremor in her voice as she whispered, "Ethan, please don't do this." But I didn't turn around. I didn't soften. I didn't give her the reassurance she had always counted on. I paused in the doorway long enough to let my words settle like dust. "Next time you want to perform, Claire, find a stage that doesn't involve your own husband." And then I walked out. No anger, no raised voice, just a level of calm that made it all hit harder. In the hallway outside the dining room, I could hear the muffled reaction of the guests, shocked whispers, someone exhaling sharply, Melissa quietly scolding Claire. But the only sound that stayed with me was Claire's voice, thin and breaking, saying my name like a plea. Something had cracked, and she knew it. She just didn't know how deep it went yet. I stepped outside into the cool night air, letting the door close behind me, leaving the warmth, the chatter, the suffocating atmosphere of that dining room. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity, sharp and grounding. Whatever was coming next, whatever the fallout would be, I wasn't running from it anymore. Not for her. Not for the sake of appearances. Not for the comfort of people who never saw the small cuts she'd been making for years. Tonight, something shifted, and I wasn't going back. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. Anger burns hot and fast. What I felt was colder, heavier, something that settles deep and refuses to move. I sat in the living room long after I got home, the dim lamp casting long shadows across the walls, replaying every smirk, every jab, every harmless joke Claire had thrown at my expense over the years. They came back like echoes, ones I'd ignored, laughed off, brushed aside to keep the peace. But this time, the peace wasn't worth the price. Around midnight, I heard the front door creak. Claire stepped inside, heels clicking softly, breath sharp from the cold night. For a moment, she didn't see me sitting there, half in shadow. Her shoulders slumped, and she let out a shaky breath like she had been holding herself together until she crossed the threshold. Then she saw me. She froze mid-step, keys dangling in her hand. "Ethan," she whispered. I didn't respond. She swallowed hard, walked toward me slowly, as if approaching a wild animal she wasn't sure she could calm. "Can we talk?" I let a long moment pass before I answered. "Go ahead." She sat across from me, not daring to sit beside me. Her hands twisted nervously in her lap, and she kept glancing at me like she was searching for the version of me she recognized, the quiet one, the forgiving one. "Everyone was shocked," she said quietly. "You embarrassed me in front of all our friends." I lifted my eyes at that, the calm in me so sharp it made her shrink back a little. "I embarrassed you." She winced. "Okay, that came out wrong. I just meant it was a misunderstanding. You know I didn't mean anything by it." "You made me entertainment," I said. Again, she opened her mouth, closed it, then leaned forward, voice softening. "I was tipsy, okay? It was stupid. You know how I get when I've had wine. I just say things." "Why is it," I asked slowly, "that the things you just say are always about me?" She hesitated. "It's not like that. Really." Her silence admitted everything. She pushed her hair behind her ear and exhaled shakily. "Look, tonight just escalated. We were all joking. Even Mark. He wasn't joking." I cut in. She stiffened. "He was trying to make a point." "No," I said. "He was responding to your invitation." She bit her lip. "You're twisting this." "No," I said. I heard every word clearly. Claire's voice cracked. "So what now? Are you going to stay mad at me forever over one stupid comment?" This wasn't one comment. She slumped back in her chair as if her bones suddenly weighed more. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The house was too quiet, The kind of quiet that makes you realize how much noise a marriage usually carries. The footsteps, the conversations, the clatter of dishes, the arguments, the apologies. Claire finally whispered, "Do you want to leave me?" I let the question hang between us. Not to punish her, not to be dramatic, but because I genuinely didn't know the answer yet. "I want you to understand," I said, "that something changed tonight." Her face crumpled. "Ethan, please, don't do this. I messed up, okay? I get it. I'm sorry. I'll fix it." "How?" I asked. "By pretending it never happened." She shook her head fast. "No. I mean, I'll do better. I can be better." "Then tell me," I said, "why you said it in the first place." She looked down at her hands, quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. But then she whispered, sometimes I get scared." That caught me off guard. "Scared of what?" "Scared that you don't want more out of life," she said. "Scared that you're too content with things staying exactly the same. Scared that we're stuck. And that maybe it's my fault." I stared at her, not expecting that. She kept going, voice trembling. So I joke. I deflect. I try to get ahead of the embarrassment I feel. Because if I make the joke first, then nobody sees how anxious I really am. I let her words sit for a moment. They weren't excuses. They were confessions. But even so, something inside me didn't soften the way she hoped. "Why not just talk to me?" I asked. "Instead of turning me into your punchline." She wiped her cheek. "Because talking to you means admitting things I'm not proud of. Joking is easy." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, and hurtful." She closed her eyes like she'd been struck. "I know, and I'm sorry." I stood up. She watched me like she feared I might walk out the door and never return. Instead, I walked to the bookshelf, pulled down a small box, and set it on the coffee table. "What's that?" she whispered. "Something I haven't touched in years." I opened it. Inside were printed screenshots, ones I had saved long ago but never confronted her with. Texts she'd sent mutual friends. Jabs, complaints, little digs about me. She stared at them, horrified. "Ethan, that was forever ago. 5 years ago. 2 years ago. 10 months ago," I said quietly. "It never stopped. You just got better at hiding it." "I never meant for you to see any of that," she whispered weakly. "That's the problem," I replied. "You're not sorry for saying it. You're sorry I found out." Her breath hitched. The tears came again, harder. "Please tell me you're not giving up on us." I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to give her the reassurance she always expected. She leaned forward, desperate. "Tell me what to do. I'll fix it. I'll go to therapy. I'll stop drinking. I'll say whatever you need me to say." "I don't want you to say anything," I replied. "I want to see who you are without the crowd, without the jokes, without the mask." "I can be better," she whispered. "I can change." I looked down at the box, at the years of small cuts she'd hoped I would never see clearly. "We'll see," I said finally. And that single sentence broke her more than any shouting ever could. She cried softly, alone on the couch, while I walked upstairs to sleep in the guest room. The distance between us that night wasn't measured in feet. It was measured in years. And for the first time, she felt it too. The next morning, I woke up in the guest room with a strange sense of calm. Not peace, not relief, just a quiet steadiness I hadn't felt in years. Sunlight cut through the blinds in long stripes, and for a few seconds I forgot everything that had happened the night before. Then I heard Claire downstairs, opening and closing cabinets, pacing, muttering. The dread in her movements traveled through the floorboards. When I walked into the kitchen, she spun around so fast you'd think she'd been waiting there all night. Her hair was brushed, makeup done, apron on, breakfast laid out like a hotel spread, eggs, bacon, toast, the works. But her smile was too tight, too rehearsed. "Good morning," she said, voice overly bright. "I made breakfast. Your favorite." I sat down, not out of gratitude, but because standing felt like giving her too much power. "What's the occasion? Does there have to be one?" "With you?" I replied. "Yes." Her smile faltered. She sat across from me, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned pale. I thought we could talk. Really talk. We already did. No, she whispered. Last night you talked, and I fell apart. I want to try again. I ate quietly for a moment, letting her wait. She took a shaky breath. I know I've hurt you. I know I've taken you for granted. I know the jokes were too far. I know. And I'm sorry. You've said that before, I replied. It never stuck. She closed her eyes. I know. But I'm trying now. I didn't answer. Instead, I stood up to get a cup of coffee just as the doorbell rang. Claire stiffened instantly. Through the frosted window, I could see a figure holding a mug. I didn't need to guess who it was. Claire hissed under her breath, "Do not open that door." I ignored her and walked toward it. She practically lunged after me. Ethan, I'm serious. Don't. I opened the door. And there stood Jenna, our neighbor, the one who had answered Claire's husband upgrade joke last night like it was a genuine offer. She smiled softly, wearing a loose cardigan and holding a mug decorated with sunflowers. Morning, she said. Sorry, but I ran out of creamer and thought maybe you had some to spare. Her eyes flicked to Claire, who was glaring at her like a predator cornered. Oh, Jenna added casually. Did I interrupt something? Yes, Claire snapped. No, I said at the same time. We stared at each other, and the difference in our answers said more than any argument could. Jenna stepped inside, and Claire's jaw clenched so hard I could hear her teeth grind. Kramer's in the fridge, I said, nodding toward the kitchen. Help yourself. Jenna walked past Claire with a polite, almost amused smile. Thanks, Ethan. Claire rounded on me. What are you doing? Helping a neighbor. She is not just a neighbor. She seems to think she is, I said calmly. That stung her so deeply, she actually backed up a step. From the kitchen, we heard Jenna humming softly while opening cabinets. Claire's voice dropped to a hiss. You're punishing me. No, I said. I'm letting you sit with the consequences of your behavior. Consequences? She whispered. Over one stupid joke. Over 8 years of disrespect. She swallowed hard, her face crumpling before she forced it back into something controlled. You can't let her stay. Why? Afraid she'll say something true? Before she could answer, Jenna reappeared with her mug topped off, leaning casually against the doorway like she owned the moment. You two look tense, she said lightly. Everything okay? Claire nearly shook with frustration. We're having a private conversation. It didn't seem private last night, Jenna replied. Sounded like a community announcement. Claire's face burned red. You need to leave. Jenna raised an eyebrow. Why? Because you don't like the reflection I'm holding up? I stepped between them before Claire could explode. Claire, I said calmly, sit down. She stared at me, stunned by the authority in my tone. But she sat. Jenna lingered near the counter, sipping her coffee, watching like an observer to a play she had no intention of leaving. Ethan, Claire said, her voice trembling. I told you I want to fix this. I said I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Then listen, I said. For once. She nodded quickly. Anything. Tell me, I said slowly, what you actually appreciate about me. As a person, not what I do for you, not what I provide. Me. Her eyes darted, panicked. I appreciate you're dependable. That's a function, I said. Try again. You're steady. Still a function. She swallowed. You're good to me. In what way? You support me. Financially, emotionally, she said quickly. But even she knew the word didn't fit. I leaned back. Try again. Silence. Heavy, painful silence. She looked at me like I was asking her to lift something impossible. Finally, she whispered, I don't know what you want me to say. The truth, I replied. And you don't have it. A small sound came from the side, Jenna exhaling through her nose. Almost a sigh of recognition. Claire turned on her. You think you're so perfect? I think, Jenna said softly, that I see value in him. Real value. Not the kind you measure in job titles, or income, or how impressive he looks at parties. Claire shook her head, trembling. This is insane. You barely know him. I've known him long enough, Jenna replied. Long enough to see what you've been missing. Claire looked at me, eyes wet. Ethan, please. Don't let her talk like that. Not in my house. Our house, I corrected. And she's not wrong. Claire's face broke then, not with anger, but with fear. Tell me you're not actually considering. I'm considering, I said quietly. The fact that someone who barely knows me sees more in me than you have in years. That sentence shattered something in the room. Claire covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. For a moment, I almost felt pity. But pity isn't the same as love. And it sure isn't respect. Jenna set her mug down gently. I should go, she said, before she blames me for more than she already does. She walked toward the door, then paused and looked at me softly. I'm next door if you need anything. Anything at all. When the door closed behind her, the house felt unbearably quiet. Claire slowly lowered her hands, eyes swollen, voice raw. Ethan, please. Tell me there's still something left here to save. I didn't answer right away, because in that moment, I wasn't sure myself. And that uncertainty was the most honest thing I'd felt in a long, long time.